In California, at least, we're on lockdown again. So we're going to make the best of it. Fortunately, we've been doing our studies online with Facebook and Zoom or whatever we need. And we're going to keep on keeping on so that we can learn together and pray together and be together in the best way possible under this difficult circumstance. I am very interested, very curious as to how some of you fared during the week as you periodically tried out these phrases on the first line of the 23rd Psalm. The thing that strikes me the most important that I learned in study is that this is a continual process. Now, when we look at our lives, we are not always aware of that continual process that God is shepherding us. And in my week's reflection, I recalled several circumstances in which I think I was brought to that awareness by situations where I was totally helpless. Martha couldn't do a thing. It was not going to happen. And there's a panic, a fear, different feelings that one can have at that time. But I can remember the last significant time that happened for me was after an accident in 2009. I won't go into the detail of the accident, but let's just say my chops were busted. I broke both mandibles and my mouth was very mangled and I was in a great deal of pain. And I was at home pretty helpless for like 3 weeks. And God was sustaining me because at that time, here at St. Junia's house, I had college students who came quite frequently. And one of the girls just decided she was going to move in and take care of me for that period of time because I really was helpless. So I can look back on those situations and see how I was being taken care of at times that were very painful, other cases where it was very lonely. And if we who are human give good things to one another, how much more does God try to shepherd us? I hope you were able to think about these things during your week as you repeated that phrase, whatever phrase you chose over the week. There are big and little miracles when we receive nurturance or guidance, or we are shielded from harm. And even though we tend to think of God as the last resort, in my case, I had to be pretty helpless before I would allow the awareness of how much I was being taken care of. And I have learned a little bit over the years. I think I'm more prone to be aware, and I think that coming back to the words from Scripture can help us keep in mind this constant sustaining, shepherding quality of God. And in our best, we follow after God and we provide that kind of nurturance to people around us who are in need. Sometimes the only Bible people will read is us. Sometimes the only way they have an inkling about God is through us. So that first phrase, you can go a lot of different directions. If you had some good, interesting, or painful thoughts, and you can do one of two things. If you don't mind it being public, you can write a note on Facebook. If it's something you'd rather do privately, send me a message. I would be very interested in what you experienced this week. And now we go on to the second line, which in the traditional translation says, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And what does that mean? There's a lot of ways that you can look at that too. And in our different translations, we have some nuances of what it could mean. One is, I lack nothing at all, or I lack nothing, or I shall not lack. But in reality, the phrase in either Hebrew or Aramaic is in the present tense again. It's like shepherding is in the present tense, and lacking or wanting, this is a present tense, not a future statement. You might say, I am lacking nothing at all. I lack nothing at all right now. Now, lacking or wanting, these are English words we use fairly easily. We don't always discriminate some of the uses that they may have. Right now, if we lack nothing at all, our shepherd is presently shepherding us, and we lack nothing, which is actually a state of mind and spirit. The real lack, most of the time, is not in the real situation, but in our mind, our hearts, our soul. How many times as children were we told, you'll get what you need, you won't necessarily get what you want? And there's a reality to that sometimes the things we want for ourselves are not what we need. We're not necessarily real aware of what we need sometime. If you are a reader of the New Testament, there are many parables where rich people and their material possessions were never enough. The point was made, no matter how much you had, it was not enough. So the satisfaction of having enough is a state of mind very much. And when we get into feeling dissatisfied, we need to stop, and we can meditate for a moment and think about what we actually have. Are we lacking anything? Are we desirous of things? Sometimes desire is a distraction and gets in our way. So we want to come into an awareness that a desire for something is not necessarily essential, and what we need is a deficit of something something that we need for our well-being, our survival. And God doesn't promise everything we want, but if we live in His presence and awareness of Him, we will lack nothing essential to our well-being, even when we're in pain or whatever. Because I remember after that accident, I was in such terrible pain, but I came into an awareness that this would come out to teach me something, and I would be sustained through that terrible time. It really was a very traumatic event for me, because there were other things going on at the same time that made it worse than it perhaps would have had to be. But I came into that point in my life with reaching an understanding that even in pain and trouble and not being able to see beyond the end of my nose, not being able to see where it was going, I was being sustained. I was being cared for. And that is an important awareness. It was for me, because I tend to be a nervous Nelly and to get anxious about things that haven't happened, that probably will never happen. And so saying as a prayer form, I am lacking nothing, and to offer praise and thanks, to become aware of all that I have. I really am not lacking anything. If I lack anything, it's to ask God for more awareness of what I should know. I acknowledge my source. I am sustained. I am being sustained. I am being shepherded as we speak. Otherwise, the whole thing goes down. And it may be hard to realize that our anxiety is often fueled by thinking about what might happen in the future or what has happened in the past. And this psalm, if understood in the Hebrew and the Aramaic, is directing us to focus on here and now. Here and now. So I ask you this week to think about what is different for you when you think about the here and now as opposed to the past or the future. How does that help you become aware of the good that you are experiencing, that God gives to you, that God is presently giving to each of us? He is to be thanked. He is sustaining us right now. We are not lacking. We are provided our needs, and we can learn from that how we can help others and be the source of God's agent, bringing His Hesed to others who are in need. Being able to give needs to come out of feeling that your own needs are being met. People who are afraid to give are often afraid that their own needs are not being met. Giving is a result of knowing that we are being sustained. We don't have to think about what we might not have or what's going to happen next month when we're in the process of giving. This is another way of being able to recognize that we are not lacking. So this week, think about that. Take a moment to thank the Creator, to the sustainer of your life, for shepherding you, and be aware in the present tense what you can be aware of at the present moment is much more, much, much more. And you will find yourself more calm and more secure if you can allow yourself several times a day to think about, I am being sustained. I am lacking nothing that I need. My needs are being met. So take that time this week, and as you do, take some notes. There are some space for you in the handout to jot down a word that helps you remember a memory, an event, a feeling that you have right now, something that will help you experience now. I am not lacking. I am being given and sustained for all I need. Did you have a question, Polly? I'm not able to hear it. So,
okay.
There. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I thought that it was reminiscent that I shall not lack. I thought it was reminiscent of the phrase in the Our Father, give us this day our daily bread. Sort of live in the future, appreciate what you have now, or
Right.
think about what you have now.
Right. And if we later study the Aramaic Our Father, which I think I will probably do at some point, you'll find that the Hebrew and Aramaic versions of that prayer are very consistent with what we have here in Psalm 23. It has to do with here and now. You have what you need. It's kind of like the story of the Israelites on the desert. They were being provided manna each day, enough for what they needed, but they were not to store up from one day to the next. They had to accept their daily food, the manna. And some of you may remember, as the story goes on, some of them were bitching and moaning about the food always being the same and making various complaints about it. And isn't that what we do too? It's hard for us to stay in the present. You have what you need today. Quit bitching and moaning. And I have to remind myself of that now and then. I see somebody with a new car and I think, oh, my 2012 car is getting kind of ratty. But no, that car still gets me around. I am not lacking anything. And that's just a simplistic example. We could all go to more personal, meaningful examples. But yes, you're very right, Polly. The same idea is seen in the Our Father. Give us this day our daily bread. And that is very consistent with the idea that we see here in Psalm 23. And in various forms of meditation, or prayer, some of them secular, some of them religious. Very often, various meditation methods encourage you to focus on right now, rather than letting your mind wander all over the universe. And it takes a little practice to bring yourself back. Bring yourself back. Bring yourself back. And if you do stay in the present tense, you will become more aware of how good life is. So we're drawing close to our end of today's meditation. I want to say one thing, that our St. Matthew Church is in a state of need in this COVID attack that is present. Some people have lost their incomes. They don't physically come to church, and we are in need. And if you value this Bible study or anything else that we're putting out there, we've just started a children's series that we're going to have every Saturday morning. And of course, the Mass will be broadcast. And we have daily prayers of all sorts going on. If you value what we're doing, please contact us at our website, saint-matthew.org, and you'll find a donate button. Any amount you can give us would be greatly appreciated. So God bless you. God provide you the awareness of what you need, the awareness that He is present, that He is sustaining you, and that He can give you comfort, and He is your security. So I bless you and pray to God that you all will fare well in this time of crisis that we're all undergoing, and we will at least continue to be able to share together and be a community, even though we cannot physically be in the same room. So good night all. I'll see you next Monday night, and we will take up the next phrase in the 23rd Psalm. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.